In this video, we'll be building a simple addition project using JavaScript. This video was inspired by a Harvard CS50 video where they built a very similar project using React. In this video, we'll be using Vanilla JavaScript. I'll demo the finished project here. What we have is a simple addition problem. Here it's 9 plus 2. I'm going to enter the correct answer, 11, press enter, and then you'll notice the score is going to go up by 1, and we're going to get a new problem. 4 plus 2, I'll answer this wrong. I'll push 5, push enter. You'll see the score goes down to 0. And if I answer 10 in a row correctly, what's going to happen is our UI is going to change, and we're going to get a message that's going to tell us that we have won the game. So that's the project. Let's get started. There's a link to this GitHub repo in the description of the video. If you'd like, you can clone down the starting HTML and CSS. It's very simple, but I'm not going to cover it in this video. Here's the starting HTML, and here's the starting CSS. We'll now go to the JavaScript so that we can focus on that for this video. The first thing that we're going to do in our index.js file is declare some variables. I'm going to copy and paste these variables in here so I don't have to sit here and type all this out. But what we have is a reference to the container div itself, a reference to the first number, the second number, a reference to this input box here, a reference to this score or this number 0 here right now, and then finally a counter variable that we're going to use to increment and decrement so that we can update our UI to reflect the current count or the current score in the game. The next thing I'm going to do to set up our UI correctly for when we refresh the game is we're going to target our first number, and we're going to set its inner HTML equal to math.ceil times math.random times 10. And what this is going to do is create a random number between 1 and 10 when we load our page. We're going to also set num2 to have an inner HTML of a random number. So now this means that when our page reloads, we're going to have two independent random numbers. So it could be 6 plus 5, it could be 3 plus 6, 6 plus 8, etc. All of the logic for our addition game is going to take place in a single event listener. The element that's going to take the event listener is our input element, and we're going to add an event listener, which takes in the first argument is key press, which is the event that we're going to be listening for. So when we're pressing a key on our keyboard. The second argument here is going to take in the event object, and it's going to be an arrow function where it's going to house all the logic for our event listener. The first thing we're going to include here in our block of code is an if check to check if the event.key being pressed is the enter key. This is the only time we want to actually run this function and check anything. Inside of this if block, we're going to start with two variables. These variables will be local to this if block. Let sum equals parse int num1 dot inner HTML plus parse int num2 dot inner HTML. This line of code here is going to represent the current sum of the two numbers that are on the screen. So it's going to look into number1 dot inner HTML, which here is 9, plus number2 dot inner HTML, which number is 9. Therefore, the sum is going to be 18. We use parse int to ensure that our program is interpreting, in this instance, the number 9 as a number and not a string. So we want it to be the number 9 and not the string with a value of 9. We're going to declare one more local variable. This time, it's going to be called response, which is going to be equal to parse int of input dot value. What this response variable is going to represent is whatever value is in our input box when the enter key is pressed on our keyboard. Now that we have a sum variable and a response variable, we're going to add another if check, seeing if those two variables are equal to one another. And remember, this if check is only running when our event.key is equal to enter. In other words, our enter key is being pressed. If sum is equal to response, we want the following to happen. First, we want to take our counter variable and add 1 to it. Then we want to update our UI with the new value of the counter variable, which we're going to do by score dot inner HTML equals count. This is going to be how we're going to see this score number here either go up or down in value. We also want new numbers to appear in place of num1 and num2, so there's a new addition question on our screen. We're going to do that similarly, or exactly the same actually, to how we did initially to start this game off. Math.ceil times math.random times 10. We're going to repeat this for num2 as well. The final thing we want to happen if sum equals response is we want the value of the input box to clear back out to nothing. So say our answer is 16 and we press enter. We don't want 16 to stay in the input box. We want to actually clear it back out so we'll have a fresh input box to work with. I'll quickly show that here actually. So if I don't have that line and I'm in my app and I press 6 and then I press enter, you notice it still has 6 there. What I actually want to happen is I want the input value to clear to empty string. So again, I'll go back here, I'll enter it correctly, 11. See the score is going to increase which I want, but this time the input value clears back out to nothing, which is what I want. So now we've completed the logic if the sum equals the response. But what happens if the user gets the question wrong? Well, then what we want to happen initially is our count variable to decrement. Once again, we want to update the inner HTML of our score variable to be equal to the new version of the count. And then once again, we want to clear the input value back to an empty string so the user has a chance to think about it and hopefully next time get the question right. And so with that if-else statement completed, our game technically works. However, we want to add one more step, which is the logic to see, did the user get a score of 10? If so, we want the game to end and we want the UI to tell the user that they won and that they're great. So inside this code block, I'll add one more if check. If the count equals 10, let's change that container, so the entire div itself, which holds the game, dot inner HTML equals to you win. We're going to add one styling just so they can actually see the message. Dot style dot font size 32 pixels. So with that final if check done, let's head to our application and give it a try. Well, 5 plus 10, I'm pretty sure that's 15. Enter, and you see that we get a new question. The input field clears out, and the score went from 0 to 1. 5 plus 7, let's get that wrong. Let's put in 999, and the score goes to 0. Again, the input field clears out. Let's quickly try to finish the game and see if our UI is going to change like we want. 17, 7, 8, 14, and then the final question, 12. And that's great. We get a message saying that we won. So that's it for this video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.